They laughed at her. They ordered her to strip, thinking she was just a weak, lost girl in uniform. But what they didn't know, she was one of the most elite Navy SEALs alive. And in less than 3 minutes, she would dismantle every insult, every doubt, and every ego in that room without ever raising her voice. Stay with us, because when her true identity is revealed, it won't just change the base. It'll change you. Subscribe to the channel and drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from all corners of the world. Let's get started. On a rainy Friday evening at Camp Briarhill, the air inside the soldiers' mess hall buzzed with the usual mix of half-finished jokes, clinking trays, and the smell of burnt coffee. But when Staff Sergeant Leo Carson raised his voice, the laughter vanished like it had been slapped out of the room. Military uniforms are just dress-up costumes now, huh? Every head turned. At the center of their sudden interest stood a woman near the food counter, motionless, quiet, and completely out of place. Her name was Samantha Lowell. With warm chestnut hair pulled into a messy braid and clear gray eyes that seemed too soft for war, Samantha looked like she belonged in a library, not on a military base. Her oversized jacket didn't hide the fact that she was smaller than the average soldier, and her boots still looked too clean. To the hardened soldiers of Bravo Company, she looked like a joke, and Carson, built like a brick wall and twice as loud, was more than happy to deliver the punchline. Who let the Girl Scout on base? Phones came out, laughter swelled, and in the dark corner by the emergency exit, Captain Mason Whitaker lowered his paper and watched closely. Because he knew something they didn't. She wasn't here by mistake. Carson's boots thudded across the tile floor as he stalked toward Samantha, his smirk widening with every step. He towered over her, the kind of man who confused height with authority and cruelty with strength. I asked you a question. Princess, he barked, standing so close she could smell the tobacco on his breath. Who signed off on this little costume party? Because I don't remember approving Bring Your Daughter to Base Day. The room erupted again, laughter, jeers, camera phones raised like weapons. Some soldiers even stood on chairs, hoping to get a better view of the humiliation. The show had begun, and Samantha was the unwilling star. Samantha's eyes dropped to the floor. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched a napkin, her shoulders hunched forward like a scolded child. She looked broken. That's what they all saw. But Captain Mason Whitaker saw something else. From his booth in the shadows, he leaned forward, his gaze sharpened. He noticed the way her eyes flicked not nervously, but methodically across exits, windows, security cameras, personnel positions. He saw her foot placement, the way her weight subtly shifted for balance. Her breathing was steady, controlled. This wasn't panic, this was patience. And that scared him more than anything. Lieutenant Hazel Monroe, all sharp cheekbones and high and mighty strut, joined the performance with a voice laced in syrup and venom. "Oh, honey," she cooed, circling Samantha like a lioness. "Are you lost?" The community theater is downtown. This is a federal installation, not a stage. More laughter. More phones. More shame, except Samantha didn't move. I have orders to report here," she said softly, almost apologetically. That made Carson snort. "Orders from who, your yoga instructor?" The mocking was relentless, one cruel jab after another, meant to break her down or send her running, and it would have worked on someone ordinary. But Samantha Lowell was anything but ordinary. Corporal Jason Miller, a weapons specialist with forearms like tree trunks, leaned back in his chair and called out, "All right then, let's test that uniform. You know how to take orders. Right, show me an about face." The crowd hushed slightly. Samantha didn't hesitate. "Sir? Yes, Corporal?" she replied, her voice now crystal clear. Then, snap! She turned on her heel with such mechanical perfection that a few jaws dropped. The motion was flawless, textbook clean. Miller blinked, surprised. "Lucky guess," he muttered. Present arms. She executed the drill with precision that could have been pulled from a training manual. Now the room wasn't laughing. It was watching. Seriously. But Carson wasn't done. He couldn't be. He needed this moment to affirm his place in the pack. Anyone can watch YouTube and fake a few moves, he sneered. Then, slowly, he unholstered his sidearm, dropped the magazine, cleared the chamber, and slid the weapon across the table toward her. Field strip it, reassemble, you've got 30 seconds. It was a trap. No civilian, even one with a good memory, could strip and rebuild a military-grade sidearm in under 30 seconds. This wasn't a test. It was a setup. Samantha picked up the pistol, and her hands changed, no longer trembling. They moved like liquid steel. Slide, barrel, spring, frame. Each component hit the table in perfect order. No hesitation, no wasted motion. 15 seconds. She began the reassembly with the same eerie calm. Click, snap, lock. She slid the reassembled weapon back toward Carson and stepped away, hands clasped behind her back, eyes lowered like before. 27 seconds. The silence was suffocating. Even the air felt heavier. Carson stared at the weapon like it had betrayed him. Miller's brow furrowed. Lieutenant Monroe's lips parted, but no words came. It was like watching a magician reveal that their trick was actually a weapon. From his booth, Captain Whitaker activated the recorder sewn into the inner seam of his jacket. The agency had suspected she was more than she claimed, but this confirmed it. Samantha Lowell was not some lost civilian. She was trained. She was dangerous. And she was done hiding. Beginner's luck, Carson muttered, his voice hollow. But the room knew better. Something had shifted, something primal. The air that had once buzzed with mockery now hung heavy with unease. Samantha's performance hadn't just stunned them, it unsettled them, deeply. Because it wasn't just that she did it was how she did it. No fear, no flair, just the calm, practiced efficiency of someone who had done it 1,000 times in silence. The laughter was gone, replaced with silence. But Carson couldn't stop. His ego wouldn't let him. He gestured to the armory case behind the mess counter. You've proven you can handle a toy. Let's see you handle real equipment. Before anyone could object, he was unlocking a secure case and pulling out an M4 training rifle standard issue, complex, and far beyond the scope of what a civilian should be able to manipulate without formal instruction. Disassemble! Reassemble! Beat 18 seconds and you break the base record, he said, slapping the rifle down on the table in front of her. It was a dare, a trap, and a last chance for him to reclaim control. Samantha stepped forward slowly. Her fingers touched the weapon with reverence like it was familiar, like it belonged to her. Then she moved, and everything changed. Upper receiver, bolt carrier group, charging handle. Buffer spring. Her hands flowed like water, her body centered and still. The entire weapon came apart in less than 8 seconds. Gasps escaped from the crowd. No fumbling, no hesitation. Just muscle memory refined, perfected. She didn't glance up, didn't smirk, didn't seem to enjoy their shock. She just got to work reassembling, piece by piece, without a breath wasted. 16 seconds. She stepped back, and silence fell like a guillotine. Sergeant Leo Carson stared at the weapon in stunned disbelief. The record had stood for 3 years, set by a hardened weapons instructor with 2 tours in the Middle East. Samantha Lowell had shattered it without breaking a sweat. Lieutenant Monroe's lips parted again, but nothing came out. Corporal Miller swallowed hard. This wasn't just competence, this was elite. And for the first time, even Private Noah Reeves, the soft-spoken 19-year-old who had barely survived basic, understood that the woman they had ridiculed was something else entirely. Miller stepped forward, hesitant now. The arrogance was gone. What remained was curiosity and maybe a bit of fear. "What's the effective range of that M4?" he asked, voice lower. Without missing a beat, Samantha answered, "Point target 550 meters, area target 600 meters. She didn't blink. "Standard combat medic loadout." IV saline, morphine auto-injectors, hemostatic gauze, trauma shears, tourniquet, nasopharyngeal airway. The crowd stirred again, this time not in disbelief, but dawning comprehension. Close air support danger, close conditions, Monroe snapped. Authenticated coordinates, blast radius clearance, ground element confirmation, final authorization from higher command, Samantha replied. Her tone clipped. Clinical? Every answer was perfect, not just accurate, flawless. No civilian could know this, no actor, no cosplayer, no lost librarian. And still, Samantha stood still, calm, quiet, composed, like she had done all of this before. Because she had. In the corner booth, Captain Whitaker finally spoke into the mic concealed in his collar. His voice was steady, but inside, his pulse thundered. Target demonstrating advanced combat knowledge. Possible Tier 1 classification. Request immediate background analysis. Ghost-level clearance suggested. Then he leaned back and watched, because he knew what was coming next. It was Private Reeves Young, good-natured, and increasingly disturbed by the mockery who stepped forward. Maybe we should just leave her alone, he said. It wasn't a yell, it wasn't even loud, but in that tense stillness, it was like a shot fired into the air. All eyes turned to him. Carson's face darkened. What did you say? Private. I said, Reeves repeated. Louder now. Maybe we should back off. She's not doing anything wrong. A long beat of silence. Then Monroe sneered. Aw, that's adorable. You've got a crush on the cosplay commando. The line was designed to wound, to belittle, but Reeves didn't flinch. She's shown more discipline and skill than half this room, he said, and we're all just standing around laughing like it's some damn reality show. That stopped everyone cold. Even Samantha. She turned slightly, just enough for their eyes to meet. And in that glance, Reeves saw something ancient, not gratitude, not surprise, but recognition, like she'd seen this moment before, over and over, in different countries, in different rooms. The cruelty, the disbelief, the one voice that dared to speak up. They were no longer mocking a civilian. They were challenging a ghost. And soon, they'd realize what a mistake that truly was. The mess hall felt different now. Moments earlier, it had been a circus, a ring of soldiers salivating over humiliation, laughing at every stumble they thought Samantha Lowell made. But after watching her disassemble and reassemble an M4 faster than most instructors, something quiet and ancient settled over the room. Not fear, not awe, something in between. The feeling you get when you realize the animal you've been poking through the cage bars isn't a rabbit, it's a tiger that has simply chosen not to bite. And now, every soldier felt that truth crawling up their spine. Colonel Richard Haynes pushed open the mess hall doors at that exact moment. 61 years old, steel-gray hair, the posture of a man carved from duty itself. He stopped halfway in when he noticed the strange tableau soldiers gathered in a loose ring, silent, rigid, phones lowered. His voice cut the air. Report. Carson snapped to attention, forcing confidence back into his tone. Sir, we apprehended an individual wearing unauthorized uniform items, currently verifying credentials. Haynes's gaze landed on Samantha, small, calm, hands behind her back as if standing for inspection at parade rest. He stepped closer. Ma'am, do you have authorization to be on this installation? Samantha reached into her jacket and handed him a set of crisp documents. No tremble, no hesitation, too calm. Haynes examined the papers. The signatures were correct. The seals were correct. Even the barcode matched. And yet, something was wrong. The orders were vague, dangerously vague. He looked up, studying her again. Before he could speak, Lieutenant Hazel Monroe chimed in, voice dripping sugary venom. Sir, if she forged those, it'd be textbook. Identity theft is everywhere these days. Carson added quickly. And sir, based on what she's demonstrated, she might be more dangerous than she appears. Samantha remained silent. Then Carson said it, the sentence that flipped the night inside out. "If she's legit," he said loudly, "then she won't mind proving it." He took a step forward. "Take off your jacket." The room stiffened. Private Reeves blurted, "Sergeant, that's not—" "Quiet! Private!" Carson snapped. "This is standard protocol for verifying unauthorized wear. We check for identifying tattoos, unit marks, service branding." His eyes locked on Samantha. "Go on, strip." The word dropped like a blade. Monroe smirked, just enough to see her back. "Sweetie, standard procedure." Even Haynes looked conflicted, torn between regulation and the unsettling possibility that they were crossing a line. But Samantha, she simply said, "It's all right." And for the first time, the entire room felt a ripple of something they couldn't name. Not resistance, not fear. Something colder, older. Acceptance. A predator uncaging itself. She unbuttoned her uniform jacket, slowly, calmly. Soldiers held their breath. The jacket slid off her shoulders, revealing a fitted gray t-shirt stretched over a body far stronger than anyone had assumed. Carson crossed his arms, the shirt too. Haynes opened his mouth. "Sergeant—" But Samantha had already hooked her fingers under the hem of her shirt. She lifted it. Gasps scattered across the room like shrapnel. Because ink-dark, sharp, impossible began to emerge along her spine. She raised the shirt higher, and the entire mess hall fell silent. Two dragons, intertwined in perfect balance, one black as midnight, one white as bone coiled across her back. Their scales detailed with such precision, the creatures seemed to breathe with her. The mark of balance, a symbol whispered about in classified briefings. Rumors of a unit so elite, so buried in black-budget operations, that even generals couldn't confirm they existed. Only 12 people in the world bore that mark. 12. Haynes stumbled back a half step. Dear God. A whisper rippled across the soldiers. "She's Phantom Division, Ghost here, Navy SEAL, one of them." Reeves felt his knees weaken. Monroe's phone slipped from her hands and shattered on the floor. Carson's face drained of all color. He looked like a man staring down his own grave. Samantha lowered her shirt, smoothed it, and stood tall. Then she spoke calm, steady, devastating. "I didn't come here to prove who I am." A pause, heavy as judgment. "I came here to see who you are." No shouting, no anger, just truth. And somehow that was worse. Much worse. Because now they understood she wasn't the one who had been stripped. They were. No one moved. No one dared. Even the humming of the fluorescent lights above seemed to quiet itself, as if the building, too, had recognized what had just happened. Samantha Lowell had just stripped off her mask and revealed a face none of them were worthy to see. The mark on her back had done what no bullet, no rank, no threat could ever do. It turned mockery into reverence. It turned a crowd of careless soldiers into stone-still witnesses. Colonel Haynes was the first to act. He stood at full attention, then saluted. A crisp, ceremonial salute. "Lieutenant Commander Lowell," he said, voice steady but hoarse, "I sincerely apologize for how this base has treated you." Samantha turned to him and returned the salute not out of obligation, but out of mutual respect. "Permission to speak plainly, sir." "Granted." She scanned the room. "I didn't come here to be treated well. I came here to see what happens when someone doesn't have the power to push back." That silence returned. This time heavier. She continued. "I was embedded here by direct order of strategic command. My assignment was simple: assess Fort Briar Hill's vulnerability to internal decay, toxic leadership, psychological manipulation, failure to act with integrity. These aren't abstract problems. They're open doors for foreign threats to walk right through." She looked directly at Carson, Monroe, Miller, then finally at Private Reeves. "I saw all of it, and I saw one voice, one person who stood when it cost him something." Reeves blinked, caught off guard by the attention. He started, but Samantha raised a hand gently. You did what you were raised to do, what others should have done, that matters. Then, to everyone. You think the enemy is always outside the wire. They're not. Sometimes. They're already inside when we allow pride to outweigh principle. When we punish strength that doesn't roar. Whitaker stepped forward from the corner, no longer hiding. The ghost protocols are now active, Colonel. He handed over a secure tablet, an official order signed and sealed. Fort Briarhill would be the first base in the country to undergo full cultural transformation under the Ghost Division's doctrine. Haynes read it. He didn't argue. He didn't hesitate. He simply nodded. Understood. Staff Sergeant Carson, who had been standing motionless, finally stepped forward. His voice cracked. "Ma'am, I didn't know." Samantha looked at him deep, searching but not cruel. "I know," she said. That was all. And yet, somehow, it crushed more than any reprimand could. From inside her jacket pocket, Samantha pulled out a small black coin, simple, matte, with an engraving of 2 dragons coiled together. She walked toward Reeves and placed it in his hand. "Only 12 of these exist," she said softly. "Now there are 13. He stared down at it, stunned. "You're not a private anymore," she said, effective immediately. "I'm recommending your battlefield promotion and entry into advanced leadership track." Reeves swallowed hard. I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Samantha said. "Just carry it. And remember what it meant to speak when no one else would." Outside the mess hall, the sound of rotor blades began to beat through the night. 3 unmarked black helicopters touched down just beyond the barracks. From them emerged soldiers clad in stealth black armor, moving with the quiet precision only Phantom Division ever mastered. Each one bore the same tattoo. They weren't here to extract Samantha. They were here to support her. Because this wasn't the end of the mission. This was the beginning. Samantha turned to Colonel Haynes one last time. "In 48 hours, this base will receive full cultural realignment protocols. Every soldier, every officer, no exceptions." She turned her gaze to Carson. "To those who abused their power, you'll be evaluated, not eliminated. Redemption's still on the table, but the days of unchecked egos running the halls are over." Then to Monroe. This includes those who stood by in silence. Monroe, pale now, simply nodded. Samantha made her way to the door, the room parting around her like a tide. She paused, once looked back and said, "I didn't come to tear this place down. I came to give it a chance to rise." And with that, Widow Echo disappeared into the night, leaving behind a base forever changed, and a room full of people who now understood. They didn't strip her. She stripped them. Fort Briarhill was no longer the same. The mess hall still smelled of burnt coffee and fried potatoes. The boots still echoed in the halls, but something unseen had shifted, a weight lifted, a current reversed. And for 3 particular soldiers, the change wasn't just around them, it was inside them. Staff Sergeant Leo Carson had stopped barking orders. 3 days after Samantha left, he stood alone in the base chapel, staring at the 2 interlocked dragons etched into the newly mounted plaque above the altar. He hadn't been discharged yet. Instead, he'd been ordered to attend daily briefings with the Ghost Protocol Liaison Team, not for punishment, but for rehabilitation, and it tore him up more than any scolding ever could. He had built his career on control, on fear, on volume. But that night when he told Samantha Lowell to strip, and she did only to reveal a symbol of power so vast it made his stripes feel plastic, it shattered something in him. He didn't sleep for 2 nights after, not out of fear of losing rank, but out of shame. Now, for the first time in years, he was listening more than he spoke. Lieutenant Hazel Monroe was assigned to oversee female mentorship under the new Ghost Cultural Division. It was ironic cruel. Even that the woman who had once stood over Samantha smirking had now been tasked with protecting the very recruits she would have torn down weeks ago. And yet, something inside her clicked. She'd spent her entire career clawing for respect in a male-dominated space, believing she had to be tougher than the men, meaner than the women, colder than all of them. But watching Samantha, a woman smaller, quieter, and infinitely more powerful, walk through fire with grace had shattered Monroe's entire model of strength. She stood in front of 20 new recruits now, female and male alike, and said words she never thought would come from her lips. I used to think leadership was about being the loudest in the room, but it's not. It's about protecting the quietest. One of the recruits raised her hand. Ma'am, is it true what they say about her, that she let it happen to test us? Monroe looked out the window, her gaze distant. She didn't let it happen, she said. She orchestrated it. And then there was Private Noah Reeves. No longer a private, now Corporal Reeves, with a sealed letter of commendation from the Office of Naval Intelligence and an open path toward specialized leadership development under Ghost Protocol mentorship. He didn't ask for it, didn't expect it. He still wore his boots with nervous energy, still stuttered sometimes, but now when he spoke, people listened. He had been the only one to stand that night, not because he thought anyone would care, but because his grandfather would have expected him to. Now, as part of his first assignment under Ghost Division oversight, he was training new cadets on integrity and chain of command responsibility. His voice still cracked occasionally, but the weight in his chest that was no longer fear, it was purpose. Across the base, the Ghost protocols were rolling out. New drills weren't just about tactics, they included ethical pressure simulations. New evaluations didn't just test marksmanship, they measured decision-making under moral duress. And posters on the wall didn't show explosions or slogans. They showed the dragons. Two intertwined. Balance and power. Shadow and light. Late one evening, Reeves returned to his bunk to find a small envelope waiting on his bed. Inside a black coin. His second. Etched on the back was a handwritten inscription. Courage isn't loud, it's lonely. You spoke first, now speak for others. W.E. He sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, holding it in his palm, feeling the cool metal press into his skin. He thought of Samantha, of how she never raised her voice, never defended herself, never explained. She just stood. And when the time came, she revealed the truth. Not by shouting, but by surviving. Fort Briarhill was healing. Not because Samantha had ordered it, but because she had shown them how. 3 months after the night Samantha Lowell silenced Fort Briarhill with nothing but calm and truth, the base no longer resembled the one she had first walked into. Gone were the toxic whispers behind backs. Gone were the smirks when a woman stepped into the firing range. Gone were the eyes that only saw weakness in silence. What replaced them wasn't perfection but accountability, and that was far rarer. Samantha had only stayed on base for 72 hours after the reveal. Enough time to initiate the Ghost Protocol transition. Enough time to shake hands with Colonel Haynes and to personally sign the battlefield promotion of one young man who had dared to speak up. After that, she disappeared. No ceremony, no farewell, no trail. Just like ghosts do. But her presence remained. In the center of the training compound, where new recruits gathered each week, there now stood a tall black pillar, smooth, cold, engraved. At its top, 2 dragons intertwined in a ring of fire. Below that, just 5 words. She stood, so we changed. And beneath that, no name. Because heroes like Samantha Lowell don't need them. They don't ask for recognition. They operate in silence so that others may speak freely. Colonel Haynes, once skeptical of cultural shifts and policy memos, now oversaw the first military leadership program built around ethical resilience required for all ranks above corporal. When asked in interviews how it had changed him, he always answered the same. I used to think discipline was about obedience. Now I know it's about integrity when no one's looking. He never mentioned Samantha by name. He didn't have to. Lieutenant Monroe, once the very face of dismissive superiority, had become one of the fiercest protectors of mental health and emotional safety within the chain of command. She trained new officers how to lead without demeaning, how to correct without crushing. She opened every class with the same story the night she watched a woman be ordered to strip and realized she had been exposed herself. They told her to show us her truth, Monroe would say, voice steady, and she did. But it wasn't the tattoo that changed us. It was her stillness. And then there was Corporal Noah Reeves, the soldier who once stood alone, shaking, defending someone the others mocked. Now, he was never alone. Selected for advanced ghost mentorship, Reeves had been quietly groomed for field command in cultural assessment units, those that walk silently into troubled bases and watch before ever speaking, the way Samantha did. He still carried the 2 black coins she gave him, one in his left breast pocket, one sewn secretly into the lining of his cap. They weren't medals. They weren't for show. They were a reminder courage isn't loud, it's lonely. But the moment that left the biggest mark came unexpectedly. One afternoon, as a fresh batch of recruits lined up for orientation, one nervous young woman at the end of the line raised her hand. She was small, quiet, looked almost fragile in her ill-fitting fatigues. "Yes, Private," the instructor called. She hesitated, then asked, "Sir, is it true she never raised her voice?" The instructor smiled. "No," he said, "she didn't need to. Some stories are passed down through medals, records, history books. Others, they're passed down in the way silence falls before a commander speaks, in the way a sergeant looks someone in the eyes instead of over their head, in the way a 19-year-old kid learns to say, 'That's not right,' without needing permission." And Samantha Lowell's story, it was all of those. She was told to strip, but in doing so, she stripped away their delusions, their arrogance, their hollow authority. And what was left behind wasn't weakness. It was a mirror, and those who could face their reflection, they changed. Samantha Lowell's story isn't just about military ranks, tactics, or hidden identities. It's about something far more universal, the quiet courage it takes to stand in a room full of people who doubt you and not shrink. She didn't fight back with insults. She didn't defend herself with anger. She let the truth speak louder than the humiliation. Because true power doesn't show off, it reveals itself when it's needed most. And when others tried to strip her down, they didn't realize they were the ones being exposed. If this story moved you, subscribe and turn on the bell. More quiet strength is coming. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.